Let's get into it. Let's start with some of the camps that you've been at recently and kind of gotten the lay of the land. And before you went to Packers camp, you did get to spend some time in Washington. So kind of what did you see there? What did you find out? And where are we standing with the team right now that, people aren't super excited about the Commanders, but I have like kind of a sick fascination with some of these offensive skill position players. So especially my guy, Terry McLaurin. So where are we at with the Commanders and what did you hear out of that camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right. Well, first of all, I'll tell you, this sounds stupid, but the vibes there are great. And that is just not what the vibes have been in Washington for so long. And so by no means do I think that good vibes alone can win a football game, but I do think that bad vibes can lose a football game. So I think that for the first time, new ownership, new head coach, new general manager, new top-tier quarterback in the draft, and Jayden Daniels second overall, this is a team that just has a lot more reason to hope and a lot less mental baggage weighing them down. And so you look and it was interesting. I mean, Jayden Daniels is definitely taking it step by step in terms of his progression on the field. But from a leadership standpoint, this is a guy who is showing up to the building 5:30, 5:45 every day. This is something he did at LSU, coming in really early. And his teammates, I mean, these vets are saying like, hey, I thought I was the first one in the building. What's this kid doing here? What's this guy doing here? Oh, it's 7 o'clock and he's already gone through his walkthrough in the bubble and lifted and had a film session and eaten breakfast, which again, I am not a morning person, so you will never catch me with those 4 things. I'm more likely to have done all that by 3 a.m. than be awake by 7 a.m. Oh. But I think that you really got to see that Jayden Daniels is just doing everything the right way, which is important if you're going to be in this new offense. He'll be in this Cliff Kingsbury offense. They've got a ton of different offensive minds in the building, like Brian Johnson is in there, Anthony Lynn is in there. Obviously, Dan Quinn is overseeing primarily the defense, although he's the head coach of the team, so really everything. And I think that when you look at the skill positions, they're going to have the quarterback who can make it work at some point, I would think. The question is, what's it going to look like in 2024? Because I think 2025, the Commanders should be a solid team. I'm just not sure how quickly it's going to come to them. What do you think?
Yeah. First of all, I think after the show is over, you and I need to have a serious conversation about your sleep habits. Okay. But we'll put that on the back burner for a second there. Being up at 3 a.m. and not being a morning person, we can't have that, Jori. But on the main topic here, which is Washington.
My family will thank you for that, but continue.
Well, absolutely. I'm here to help. I'm here to help with that much more than helping people win their fantasy leagues. I'll tell you what. But I think you bring up an interesting point when you talk about the coaching staff here for this Washington Commanders group, because I don't want to say this is necessarily a bad thing, but it does strike me a little bit like the Panthers coaching staff last year.
Yes, 1,000%.
And I'm glad that you find that too, because I hadn't really connected those dots until we just started talking about it here, that it is on its surface an interesting group of people from a lot of diverse offensive backgrounds. Like what Anthony Lynn has done is like a kind of conservative run game coordinator, and then really like even back in his days with the head coaches of the Los Angeles Chargers, which is why Eckler's there. I think a big part of that. Very different than what Cliff Kingsbury did, even from a run game perspective in Arizona. Brian Johnson with the Philadelphia Eagles last year, that was a very kind of static offense that I think needed a little bit more.
I also don't think it was his offense that he was running, and that's a whole other thing that we could have a conversation about. That's
a great point. I said this a lot too with that Eagles offense last year, that I'm a big Shane Steichen fan, but that offense looked a lot like Shane Steichen's offense, and then we're all criticizing how it's not the middle of the field, it's too stacked and all that. It was like they just had a different guy pushing the buttons last year. And then when that guy's out of the room, I think it puts more pressure on people to elevate into positions that maybe they're not the most comfortable. But again, I do think that's going to be interesting to watch how all of that kind of comes together for Washington, because, just when you do, I'm working on my league-wide projections right now to hopefully write a piece for Yahoo next week and just, again, kind of put together preseason rankings. When you look back at like play calling data of Cliff Kingsbury and some of these guys, it could potentially be a very interesting offense even this year. But I do think like all of these ideas coming together, the fact that you've got a rookie quarterback, the fact that you've got some new players in the building, it could definitely be an operation that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, like I like the guys that I'll have in there. I like that he's got Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson as options. I like that. I don't think Zach Ertz is going to be like the guy, but I like that he'll be mentoring Ben Sinnott, and there should be like some degree of continuity over time. And similarly, you got Austin Eckler as Brian Robinson. I also think that Austin Eckler will be really interesting in special teams with all the new returns. I think that's definitely something Dan Quinn sees as a great role for him. But yeah, I'll have to see how quickly does Cliff want to throw everything at Jayden, because What struck me is that when I was in Washington, they kept talking about making it easy for the quarterback, trying to take responsibilities off their plate, trying to make it a quarterback-friendly system. And then I go to Green Bay this week, and you have Matt LaFleur saying, hey, I used to try and bring a quarterback along slowly, and now I decided I should throw everything at him and let him learn by mistakes, learn by failing, but I'd rather him learn that way than not understand something conceptually from the beginning. And I asked him when he changed that philosophy, and he said with Jordan Love. And so that was a very different tone than I heard in Washington. And I don't think there's one right way for a single team. I think every team is different. I think every quarterback is different. But I think they'll have to see how much they let Jayden Daniels do what they fully envision his role as being from the start.
I want to transition to the Packers, but just to put a bow on the Washington conversation from like a brass tacks perspective here, their week 1 game, and it by the way, it almost just excites me a little bit to be looking at the week 1 schedule and be like, this is coming.
Yeah, you've got that giddy little smile for those who are listening and not watching.
This is exciting. Week 1 in Tampa Bay against a hardened defensive mind in Todd Bowles. We know they throw a lot at young quarterbacks. He could just be blitzing the hell out of Jayden Daniels in week 1. They play New York at home. Giants front 4 looks pretty ferocious after adding Brian Burns to go along with Lawrence and Thibodeau. So yeah, I think our kind of consensus here, Jori, is maybe by the end of the season, even, after which is a super late week 14 bye, maybe this offense is starting to come together. But if you have Commanders players on your fantasy team and it takes a little bit of time for the results to start trickling in, don't be surprised.